Thank you and welcome. Okay, we're always gonna have that issue when we start. I don't know what it is. It's always that little bit of issue. Woo-hoo-hoo. I like the little echo, echo. Not there anymore.
Okay, so I just
Okay.
need to.
I don't know. Can I hear myself?
Sure.
Hello,
Oh, John, be careful.
hello.
Don't move.
Yay! Okay, David's gonna have to take care of something for a moment.
I think John's got it.
Okay, so John's in the house, David's in the house, and welcome to You Can't Make This Shit Up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, look, at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get to get the morning poop, and now you get to have David and Joel talk about making, the incredible, crazy things that happen, and you can't make this shit up. So, David Washington, Joel Hawksley, it's absolutely phenomenal. If you want to get a hold of me on Twitter, just at and then spell my last name backwards, and you can hook up with me that way. So, and if you were to try to get a hold of me by email, same thing. Type my name backwards at AOL, at Gmail, at anything basically, but those are the better ones. So, David's not here. He's turned his camera off.
I having a little trouble with my headphones. They keep going in and out.
Really? Why would that be? You're in one now.
I'm in one now.
No, you're in. I think you're in four now.
I'm in four.
Yeah.
Okay.
But your headset would be over here.
Oh.
It'd be here.
Okay. All right.
One of the ones that are plugged in. Are your headset here? That's yours.
Okay. Some reason it was.
It was not tight. Hey, everybody got to say that was terrible. I hate to see what that looked like. Oh, sorry. Every time we have a few technical, we're going to get really good at this, and you guys are going to be like, oh, blown away.
Yeah, we're going through our motions here, and we're learning, and we're learning as we go, and production value is going to increase over time. However, this is who we are. This is what's happening, and we're getting there.
Nice. So let me see. Today, we have a lot to talk about. Florida just went into special session. And if you guys don't know, Florida is, as soon as we elect our officials, they're basically in office. So they have to live in their district as soon as the election's over. So, but we have a crisis right now. Homeowners in the state of Florida are seeing their homeowners insurance triple, sometimes quadruple. And it's something that needs to be tackled. So I don't think there's really a fix that can ever happen right away because it's gotten so far out of control. But at the end of the day, the governor called a special session because our House and our Senate only meet usually at the beginning of the year for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So every state's different. If you wanted to learn all 50 states, it's quite interesting because like North Carolina, they only meet every 2 years. So I guess everything else is a special session for them too. So, so David, what do you think? I'm just kind of curious what you think about
the special
session because did they come out with something? Yes. Did they come out with something that benefits the people? There's a question to it.
So. Right.
So talk about the Republicans. Did they do the right thing with their supermajority?
Well, it's yet to be seen as we have our next catastrophic event. However, the Democrats had some issue. They felt that the protections for those who have property insurance, the protections for them did not go far enough. The argument by the Democrats is that there was giveaways to the insurance companies, but not any relief, immediate relief for property owners. And
Well, doesn't that always happen? I mean, let's go look at the past when we were, you know, George W. Bush was, President Bush was looking at a housing crisis, a banking crisis, and you end up going the easiest way, or the easiest way, because what they did was they bailed out the banks in the housing crisis, and they didn't bail out the people.
sure.
They bailed out, Barack Obama gets it. President Barack Obama gets in, and he bails out, tries to make sure that the car industry doesn't fail us. I think they always go straight to the business when you give relief straight to the people. They worry that it doesn't get spent on the right thing. So you may be able to tell a state how to, you may be able to tell somebody what the money's for.
Sure.
But if you give it to somebody, they can spend it anywhere.
Well, let's bring it back to Florida. So,
well, that's one example is the businesses. There's less businesses. There's less insurance companies than there are insured.
Right. So how did we get to less insurance companies? Because this did not just happen overnight.
No.
This has been something that's been kicked down the road for years and years, and for at least a generation of Republican rule.
Well, I'm not defending it. I'm saying, look, the reason they go after, they take care of the insurance company is because there's less insurance companies than people. But we now have less insurance companies because it's not worth, there's no gain staying in Florida with the hurricanes. There's no gain here in Florida because we have a set aside fund that they can tap. I just don't know what to say because insurance is not my thing.
Sure.
I'd probably be like the representative that sat there and went, huh?
Right.
Like, I don't, but I do understand that that's probably why they did it the way they did it. Whether it's good or bad.
I know that the New York Times did an expose in their podcast, The Daily, about the property insurance issues here in Florida.
Wait. What state was that?
What state?
What state was that? New York?
The New York Times?
The New York Times needs to make sure they take care of New York, okay?
No, New York Times is in.
Oh, bullshit. That's a freaking liberal piece of crap. Come on. You might as well say, well, David, the New York Post said. I mean, the New York Post, the New York Post, the New York Times, the New York Post, the New York Post,
their daily podcast, the expose, and I mean the facts are the facts. The Republicans had an opportunity to resolve this several years ago, failed to do so, and knowing that things were only going to get worse.
Let me ask you a question. So you say, who was governor at the time?
I think it was a Republican.
It was a Republican, but no, he's a Democrat.
Who?
Charlie Crist.
No, not at that time.
I know he was a Republican, but I said he's a Democrat.
No,
he's a Democrat right now.
No,
he's a Democrat right now. So there was a Democrat at the time. No, he was still a Democrat back then.
Oh no, we're in 2022.
I'm just messing around. Everybody knows I'm just messing around because I'm a big fan of Charlie Crist.
I like the autograph T-shirt that you have with his face on it. Vote Chris.
Hey, hold on. Listen, if you any of you on the campaign trail, this is what I've heard, got close and saw his fiance, they're no longer together.
Seriously?
Yeah, they've broken it off. And I'll tell you why if I knew, but let's just say Charlie just doesn't have that woman under the arm kind of guy. He just doesn't seem to be that one.
She put on a good performance at his concession speech.
Yeah, the first thing that somebody told me was, yeah, they're not together anymore. I'm like, that doesn't surprise me. And they're looking at me like, what? I'm like, listen, when it comes to Charlie Crist, nothing surprises me. I mean, you can't make this shit up. No, but you can. I'm not saying it because I'm not going to, I'm not going to until the man comes out and says, hey.
Right.
So,
but back to the insurance thing. Florida's in trouble, I think, and I don't know what's going to be the answer. The Republicans scream tort reform, and that's our good friend Rishi Baga stated. He's a lawyer, construction law. He's like, it's going to take more than tort reform. And it seems to be an answer that Republicans have
tort reform
use for
but even Rishi
this type of issue.
Even Rishi admitted that tort reform is part of it.
Right, part of it.
But what we have to, because of the fraud, the amount of fraud that was happening with, we had a law that said you had to have your roof replaced every 10 years. And you'd have a roof that was perfectly fine having to be replaced. That's our fault, right? But when you have these unlicensed, you got these people that come around just because there's a storm and now they want you to get a roof.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing fake evaluations of your roof.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of that shit happened. And that's what they're trying to say got us here. Because the Republicans, of course, we don't want to take the blame for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to point your finger. You point your finger at that.
I'll just lay it at their feet.
Well, you can. I can't. I have to find an excuse. But I can't right now. I'm not gonna defend the fact. Listen, my friend, I'm gonna ask my friend, Representative David Smith, when he has a moment, I'm gonna try to reach out to him and have him come out here and explain what they've done.
Right.
Because I believe he's I don't know if he chairs that one or he's on the insurance.
Okay.
He mentioned that.
And he's been pretty much up
and he's up front. I mean,
right.
The one thing I like about David Smith, you can't, he's honest with you. I mean, he's not going to tell you something that's not going on. And if he votes away a certain way, he'll tell you why.
Exactly.
And you may not like the fact. It might be, hey, I needed my legislation to get passed, and this was important to the governor. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's going to be bold enough to tell you the truth. So that's what I like about David.
On the surface, a great deal of political integrity from my point of view, from what I do know of Representative Smith.
Oh, it's a lot better. It's a lot better than Hawkins. I mean, you never know what Hawkins is doing, and he should have been defeated, but he wasn't because of the amount of money. Look, I can say that. I can say that he should have been defeated, but I can't endorse the other candidate, right?
Right.
But he's horrible for he's horrible for Orange County.
Yes.
And when Orange County finds out that he's not a Rene Placencia, like he tried to pretend he was, they're gonna.
I don't think he really had to pretend. The Democrats, and I just recently looked at some of the numbers in regards to turnout recently in that part of his district, and the Democrats were outpaced. I think by 10 points in turnout.
Right.
The Democrats did it to themselves. This is when you don't vote. This is the product of that action. When you vote in numbers, you typically will get the results that you wanted, like the Republicans did statewide.
Well, what else are we supposed to talk about? Let's not talk about insurance the whole time.
I have life insurance.
I don't like insurance.
So right now I'm going to do a PSA for insurance. I'm just kidding.
No, listen, I'll do it. I'll do a PSA for insurance. Like, listen to this one. Listen, this one is really cool, right? If 100% of the people in the state that you live in were given the option to buy insurance or not, what would be the best thing for your state? Yes or no? Well, from our point, I'm an insurance company. I want you to make sure it's mandatory. But people drive safer, a lot safer, when they know they have to pay for it themselves.
Right.
Sometimes insurance may not be the best for you. There's my PSA. Like, I can't, every state makes it mandatory. They give you this like minimum. It gives these lawyers all this freaking opportunity.
Right.
And listen, a lot of people, I'm not saying don't have insurance because you're going to get your license suspended. I'm saying if you are on the vehicle and it is your responsibility to pay for yours and theirs, you would drive a whole lot better.
Right.
Now, if you're in the military and you get a vehicle that you don't own, listen, you drive it a little rougher. You do like when you rent the car, you know,
Right.
you drive it a little bit more dangerously. So I'm done with that because the reason I feel this way, and that's a feeling thing, okay? And logic comes into it too. Every single car that's like over $100,000 has driven absolutely incredibly disastrous because I guess they don't have to worry about it. The more money the car is worth, the more insurance, and the worse they drive. Now, okay, I've said it.
I mean, in closing, in regards to insurance, the Democrats want to stabilize the market to promote competition in the insurance market, property insurance market, keep more money in Floridians' pockets. You know, they want to see that people are able to afford the insurance, be able to budget for recent increases. Let me finish. This is Democrats. This is from the Democrats.
Okay.
And then they want insurance companies and the government to be more accountable to the people. Return, excuse me. And there was a proposal to return to an elected insurance commissioner, establish property insurance commission, a property insurance commission, and prevent commissioners from lobbying or working for insurance companies in Florida for 7 years after their term expires. So this is what the House Democrats proposed. And I believe none of that was included in the final bill.
And how did the last vote go?
Party on.
No, but how did the last vote go? The last election? Because elections have consequences.
Yes, they do.
Democrats, you didn't get nothing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When you don't put in an effort, you suffer.
So whether I agree or not, it doesn't matter. I truly believe that this is a broken system. Only thing I was going to say when I was going to try to interrupt you is, aren't you guys the party that gave insurance companies like a big, huge chunk of change with Obamacare? You didn't talk about the people as much as the insurance companies actually made a benefit.
Property insurance?
No, I'm talking about this is the same. So property insurance is different than health insurance. Oh, okay.
I'm saying.
Okay. We're going to go sometime. We're going to have to go sometime. But
we'll get properly prepped. Like John,
it's like, wait a minute. Okay, you can go this way and you can't go the other way. Okay, but I love it. We had another thing on our
constitutional carry.
Oh, okay.
You want to start this one off?
Oh, I'd love to start this one off because it's going to really be an interesting conversation.
I'm muted. Am I muted? I know on here I'm muted, but not through the. Am I muted through the machine?
Yeah, you have it muted.
Right, that because we'll get that.
I can hear you now. I'll do it.
Okay. There's no. See, I got an echo.
Do you have it muted on your computer?
Yes. So let me try this. Okay. And now I still have an echo.
Why would you have an
Now you have
echo?
an echo.
Um,
See, typically I'll have it off, but now I still hear an echo.
you still hear an echo.
Yes.
We didn't have an echo before.
No, because
You're not muted.
I had everything muted on my machine here, on my laptop,
Okay, mute everything on your machine except for that.
except for what?
This one. The one
I
that's
still have an echo now. I unmuted.
Now mute your computer.
It's muted. I have StreamYard unmuted.
Now I'm muted again.
Yeah, but you're
Aren't
not
I
coming
going
through.
through
You should.
aren't I coming through? Yeah,
You're coming through there, so it's working somewhere.
somewhere. We'll replay it.
As long as you can hear.
Except I can hear you a whole lot better when you're not muted.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I can hear you. Well,
I can hear you too.
all right.
So we're just talking like, hey, you know what? If you can't hear David, I'm sorry. It's my
It was
fault.
good stuff.
But no, listen closely. The governor has a priority for constitutional carry. Now, David,
Yes.
Democrats are up in arms about this. I mean, supposedly they tried to get it through the last Congress and Senate, just couldn't go anywhere. I gave my friend Sabatini, Anthony Sabatini, the new chairman of Lake County Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
God, that sounds funny. But
It really doesn't.
Representative Anthony Sabatini would tell you that he actually tried to get this thing passed. But
Yes.
you know, if you really try, you would have had somebody in the Senate partnered. You wouldn't have just thrown it down into committee.
But now apparently DeSantis is picking it up.
But that's because Republicans and the people told Sprouse, yeah, the new speaker, they wanted this, and would it be addressed? Now he's like, yes, it would be. He's going to keep his word.
Right.
And that's the thing. He said it last year, and he's going to keep his word. But, you know, is it the right thing? That's what we're going to talk about. Because it's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, I think we're on the opposite ends. I mean,
No,
the
we're-
opposite.
We're confused on this. Listen, I'll tell everybody. I was raised. I kind of say I was raised with the gun in my hand. Very young when I started to go shoot rifles. I had to do the sitting position, the prone position, standing, all these different things.
Sure.
I really learned how to be the safety of the weapon, all this other stuff. That's the issue for me, is I went through training, and then I went in the Army, and I had more training. So I have training with the weapon more on the safety side, and that makes it even more enjoyable when you actually go out. But you're trying to say, because this is in the Constitution, that you automatically should be able to purchase a gun. Bring your gun anywhere. And to me, just because you have a constitutional right to this, it's still the state, as the people say Scalia, you know, really made this decision, and I agree.
2008 decision.
Yeah.
In that Washington D.C.
Washington D.C. versus Heller.
District.
Yeah. So District of Columbia was they lost, but they also won in the fact that yes, they couldn't do what they were doing, but Scalia said they still had a right to regulate handguns
Correct.
and certain. So you kind of look at the whole decision, you read all the way through.
Mhm.
Every state has an opportunity to protect its citizens. But that would mean that like like a rifle,
Right.
that's a weapon of the militia.
Correct.
Automatically, yeah, I see it.
Sure.
So you can go buy a rifle. And nowadays, all these incidents are happening with, long guns. I mean, they're happening with, you know, what you guys call automatic weapons. They're not automatic.
No, they're not. And I remember our conversation as we were talking about, prep for this particular episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up. Talking to John about his experience and informing me, enlightening me about all the regulation, to protect not just the public, but also the gun owner. And having it laid out the way John laid it out, the two of you, when you spoke to me, laid it out for me, it seems reasonable. Now, I believe, hey, everyone should have their gun, free to carry it, take it wherever you want. It's America, or at least it's the free state of Florida. Let it fly.
Well,
Let
David's
it fly
gonna
and let the consequences.
David's gonna get thrown out of the Democratic Party, and I'm gonna get thrown out of the Republican Party. Listen, all I'm saying is the Constitution has limits.
That's correct.
And the problem we're having in the Republican Party is we're only reading what we want to read.
Sure.
No, the only time we want an amendment to make sense is if it's a Second Amendment.
Sure.
The First Amendment, the Democrats are tearing that apart. I mean,
you're following the Republican playbook on that.
And the Republicans are doing the same thing in the schools.
Sure.
So let's not go there, but let's talk about the constitutional carry. Like, I hope my representative stays in the same position he is, because listen, we both served in the United States military.
Very much.
And you take care of me in Florida. I don't have to take the safety class because I've already had the safety class.
Right.
So you give me that break, but I still to get a concealed weapons permit, which you still would need to get. People, I don't think you realize that doesn't eliminate that carrying rule, right?
Right.
There's a law in the books. You can't just carry your gun everywhere you go. And what are they going to say? They're going to say open carry. See, it becomes constitutional carry. Then it becomes open carry. Then it becomes, listen, you can't stop me from shooting you. Now that's not true, because it's the lawful use of guns.
Correct.
And now it's getting out of control. So, listen, I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment.
Correct.
But states have a right to stand up to the Constitution with handguns, with other, especially.
I agree. And, despite my earlier comment, I do agree that states have that right to regulate. States have that right to determine the regulation, how far it goes, or how far it does not go.
Right, and then the federal government comes in, the federal government or the Supreme Court comes in and says, this is where the line is.
Exactly.
You have a right to protect yourself.
Correct. In your home.
In your home.
And on your property.
And listen, it doesn't matter what kind of weapon.
Right.
But the weapon, if the Congress decides it wants to play around with handguns, you might have to worry about that. Because it's only got an accuracy of 50 meters.
Okay.
So it's not considered a real effective weapon for militia.
Correct.
I mean, and the only reason that our officers carry a handgun, if you really want to know the truth,
I do.
is not to shoot the enemy.
It's to protect themselves.
Yes, and to take care of traitors. Like they're carrying a handgun. A handgun is not for the enemy. They're not coming boom boom. Like they're carrying a rifle just like anybody else.
Wait, did you say the police or
No,
the
I'm
military?
talking about in the military.
Oh, then okay.
Every
Right.
officer has issued a
Yes.
handgun.
Right. Right.
It's not issued to you to go fighting because you're not going to be in the front lines.
Right.
Please, if they don't realize that by now, if the soldiers around there don't understand that,
Mhm.
that's not to shoot the enemy.
I do now understand that much more about the militia clause in the Second Amendment and the use of long rifles versus handguns. I understand the regulation, and I believe the regulations are reasonable. Question is, how do you address those incidents where we do have violence, gun violence in the community? At schools, churches, or if you're in downtown Orlando with your buddies and you're not
Downtown Orlando,
someone pulls out a gun on
downtown Orlando. Listen, you want to go to the bars? You're gonna have to go through the metal detector
you,
now.
right?
I mean, that's what they've decided to do. I mean,
Quietly,
yeah, but
quietly put that into place.
right, but you can't just freely walk into a bar. I mean, you're
So
not supposed
now-
to.
So now my freedoms to walk freely throughout downtown are impinged upon because there's some
A little bit of fear will give up a lot of freedom.
Patriot Act.
Remember
1
that.
and 2.
Like, just remember that. That's an example. Somebody shot a gun downtown, wound somebody. Maybe he didn't hit anything. All of a sudden, we tried this in the past. It worked. We're going to do it forever now.
Right.
Okay, you tested it out. Nobody complained. But now you're slowing down all these people. You're talking about alcohol involved.
Correct.
Nobody's supposed to carry a gun, even concealed weapon into a bar. I mean,
right.
Listen, I could argue this one all day, but it's common sense. I'm not a big fan of constitutional carry. It sounds good,
Correct.
but when you start to see what they're looking at, just because I can't see just because it's in the Constitution, it's your right. I mean, I get it, but the federal government can be strict. What's wrong with the 10th Amendment? Like we got the 14th Amendment, which is the Commerce Clause, which allows this, which is part of why this is allowed, right? So you take the Commerce Clause, then you take the 10th Amendment, which gives the state the right to regulate it, or anything that's not in the Constitution, the state's supposed to have it.
Correct.
So, okay, the federal government came out with here's a perfect example. We can transition.
But before we do, can you define constitutional carry again? I want to make sure that our audience is.
Well, I think John should pull it up so we can read it verbatim, because to me, from talking to the people that really want it,
right,
the radical right, I'm going to call them for somebody, or the MAGA, the MAGA people, they want, just because it's in the Constitution, you should be able to have it.
Correct.
Okay, you should be able to buy it, no matter who you are. Doesn't matter how crazy you are. Doesn't matter. You're born here. You should have access to it.
Okay.
That's how they presented it to me, and I'm going, yeah, I don't think so. I just don't feel comfortable with that. Now, I know Vermont, which is very liberal. They have it. New Hampshire has it.
Okay.
Whether I agree with it or not, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan because it sounds good. It does. It sounds beautiful.
Right.
But it's a marketing thing. Because listen,
John has the definition from usconcealedcarry.com. Constitutional carry means that the state's law does not prohibit citizens who can legally possess a firearm from carrying handguns openly and or in a concealed manner. Thus, no state permit is required.
Okay, well, do you have to get a permit in the state of Florida right now?
Yes,
You do. You have to have a permit.
yes. According to Fox 13 in their expose dated December 16th, 2022.
Okay. So so they're saying the only thing is you won't have to have a state permit,
Correct.
but it's not covering it. It's not covering constitutional. I mean, it's not covering the concealed weapons.
Under current law, people who want to carry guns must get concealed weapons licenses from the State Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services.
Yeah, but that's for concealed carry.
Right.
You can buy a gun
Oh yeah.
in the state of Florida
Right,
without a
but
permit.
Without a permit, yes. Right. Clarification.
Okay, so this is just the law written out.
Where now you can carry out in public.
Oh, no.
Where-
Constitutional carry, I don't believe it says purchase, right?
Let's look
You
at it
can
again.
legally possess.
Legally possess. Okay, but this is not talking about open, this is not open carry. This is constitutional carry.
Right.
So, I mean, I still think back in the day, come on, David, I'm going to defend a little bit now, but
Mhm.
back in the day, you had your buddy who was driving along. He had both rifles in the back of the window. You knew who he was. Like, hey, there's no problem.
My buddy Tyrone in Chicago. Yeah, we used to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem with that, listen, the only problem with that is, hey, you're letting people know, and nowadays they break in your car to take shit. So, yeah, I wouldn't do it now, but no, that's what I'm talking about. Like, why? That's no problem. Look, are you scared of that gun that's behind that man? Why? Because you're scared of the man. So wait a minute. If you're scared of the man that's
With a gun.
with the gun,
Right.
who doesn't have the gun in his hand, you already have a problem. That's stereotyping. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I mean,
That's a reverse thing, right? Okay.
hey, for a young black man.
I'm just saying. I'm just
that
saying.
comes with different connotations.
Well, I get it.
There's history behind it.
I get it. But that's what I'm saying. Like,
right.
that doesn't scare me.
Right.
But you'll yell at me if I get scared walking in Chicago in the middle of the night, where I'm already scared because it's nighttime. I mean, come on. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? And a black guy comes around the corner, and I'm supposed to be like, "Yo, dude, what's happening?" No, that get me killed. I could say that. No, But if I say, "Ooh, I walked across the street, shuffled across the street," you call me somebody would call me a racist.
Okay.
I'm not that person anyways, because I still keep on walking.
Right.
Because I lived in Massachusetts, so I don't really care. Like,
exactly.
but if the guy comes across with a freaking rifle in the back of his car, it doesn't scare me.
Well, there was an AK.
What scares me is when
80s or a long rifle in 2021 outside of a polling place.
David,
I'm concerned.
That I'm concerned with. That's not legal.
Right.
You know that's not legal.
I do. I personally have not come across.
Hey, the only people in our history
Mm-hmm.
that have restricted people from going to the polls
Mm-hmm.
were Democrats.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to make sure that you can say the party switched. I don't believe you.
I see it.
No, I'm just saying those people out there that keep trying to convince us.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say, who are those people? People with the opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Democrats have a party history that they have to live up to. And you have a president right now who put federal mandatories in place.
3 strikes.
The former vice president
3 strikes.
put the federal regulation, the law, he brags about it when it passes, to put more black people in jail.
Three strikes.
for longer periods of time
Yes, sir.
with mandatory minimums. You can't make this shit up.
You can.
You voted for him because what? He had a change of heart?
No, there was an existential threat of Donald Trump becoming president again.
Oh yeah, because he was actually pulling those back. I mean, you didn't see those felons that actually came out of jail early because he
Oh, the
He minimum-
deferments?
he took down their sentences.
Wait,
Donald Trump did that. Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And that was like, oh my God, we better get in motion now. We better do something because we don't want Donald Trump to get the black vote.
It's a token effort. You got an increasing.
I don't care. Yeah,
amount of
I don't
votes.
care if it's token or not. It was a well-deserved and overdue, and Republicans have been wanting that for a long time.
Agreed.
But
I
we
agree
want
with that.
we
Yes.
want to enforce law,
Mhm.
but those minimum sentences didn't make sense.
They're brutal.
Federal minimals. That's not. Where is that in the Constitution? Let the state use the 10th Amendment.
Right.
I mean, we have the 3 strikes rule here. Thank you, Jeb Bush. But if you have a weapon in a crime,
Ooh,
that's it.
yeah,
You're done.
good.
I mean, I have no problem with that. You should never have a weapon for any crime.
Right.
I don't care if you're embezzling, just don't put that freaking gun on your hip. That was bad. That didn't. Oh. But that's what I'm saying. This really leads us into our next discussion, which was we had the better term that transition when I had said it before. Our other thing was we were going to talk about constitutional carry, and then we were going to talk about
What was it, John? What was it?
The third topic was Disney not being able to govern itself.
Lady Creek.
Yeah.
You want to jump into that one?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's a good one.
Right.
So, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. So let's talk about
Corporations are people.
corporations are people. The U.S. Constitution is unless the Supreme Court decides to override that one and override the next one and override the next one.
It's a freaking pissing match.
No.
You know?
No, but I was going to say,
Let's
what I
go
was
for it.
going to say before we got to this topic,
Yeah.
was I wanted to mention the you're going to look. Everybody's looking at me. The Marriage Act, the Respect for Marriage Act. Is that it?
Yes, yes.
The Respect for Marriage Act. Okay. Here's the federal government.
Yes.
There's nothing in the Constitution.
Yes.
Nothing in the Constitution
Right.
that says anything about abortion.
Mhm.
There's nothing in the Constitution about, sexuality.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, it's amazing that we need a federal law to protect individuals from the 14th Amendment. Because the 14th Amendment already did that. That's why the Supreme Court said a marriage must be recognized in every state.
Mhm.
It didn't say you could, and it never said you have to allow them to get married in every state. It just simply said, okay,
Marriage
you
has to
can't treat
be
people
available.
differently.
Right.
And if they're married, you can't treat them differently if they come in your state. Now we have a law on the books that still does that.
Correct.
But now you can't say the Supreme Court made it the law because they don't make law. They simply said the 14th Amendment allows you to bring that marriage to another state.
Correct.
Now you're going to make it recognized.
Correct. Well, if you
That's common sense.
right, if a married couple from Illinois comes to Florida, then people will recognize that couple was married.
Yeah, they just couldn't adopt.
Sure.
I mean, in the state of Florida, we didn't allow them to, we didn't allow.
An out-of-state couple.
No, we didn't allow
Same-sex?
a same-sex couple to adopt children in the state
Okay.
of Florida.
All right.
I don't know if it's still in the law, but that That was the biggest.
Yeah.
That was our biggest controversy before. So,
Yeah, I'm not too sure about Florida.
but yeah,
In Illinois,
I love it when somebody tells me, "Hey, David, you know what? The Supreme Court made it a law that I can get married to another man."
Hmm.
No, they just said they couldn't prevent you from marrying another man.
Exactly.
I mean, they didn't make this law, so now you have a law.
Right.
So whether I like it or not, it's a law that protects them. It basically says the 14th Amendment applies.
Right.
You gotta recognize that union.
I believe the comments made by Justice Thomas in regards to the Weller case, stating that Roe v.
Okay, you're right.
was an overreach.
Listen,
And so people got concerned.
so Clarence Thomas is a absolutely fine judge. Now you can hate me for saying that or whatever, but he's very thoughtful.
Okay.
However, in his written statement, he did say that we may need to revisit the case that that allowed individuals to not be stopped from getting married.
Right.
Now, then they get mad at him and they say, well, how far back is he going to go? I mean, he is married to a white woman, and that used to be against, it's the Supreme Court that made that possible for him to marry her.
Right.
So that leads me to the fact that, listen, can we stop trying to say these stupid things like, we need to impeach Clarence Thomas because he voted one way or another? Okay, like, it was one vote. It didn't make a damn bit of difference. And just because his wife might be wacky doesn't mean he's wacky.
Right.
Okay, don't
expand
blame
the court.
Don't you even.
Yes.
Don't you even. That's another one. Do you know how big the courthouse is?
Do you know how busy?
Do you know how big
the lower courts are?
Do you know how big the Supreme Court is?
The size of
the building.
Oh no.
Listen.
I've walked past it several times.
Yeah, I literally don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to have to build up. What?
They can
But
have
you give me a
dais right in front of the current one, kind of layered it. Theater seating.
Okay, so wait a minute. We're not talking about, there's plenty of room at the table. I'm not saying they can't all sit at a table, but they have office and office staff, and they have to do it. Oh, come on.
We've made accommodations.
You don't think
Homeland
9?
Security.
You don't think 9's
Why
enough?
not expand the
You don't think 9 is enough?
I said let's go like 25.
Not with Biden's in office.
Why not?
Because I'm not letting him. I'm not going to let him.
We've got 6 more years.
I'm not going to let him nominate the first set.
We got 6 more years.
No. Nope. Oh, yeah. We can have fun with that, but yeah, expand the court. I can't believe you said that right now. That's what.
All right, 15.
That's not. Fuck no. Listen. I can't help it. I can't help it.
Is heavy.
No, that's not. Docket's not heavy for the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court takes what they want to take. Just because you want them to take more stuff that they shouldn't. Listen, they take on a lot of stuff as it is. I mean, let's see. How many times have you been to Washington and ever seen nobody protesting outside the Supreme Court?
I participated in several protests.
I'm
Not
just
outside of the Supreme Court, but
I'm just saying, I've never walked by and haven't seen at least 2 people with a sign. I mean, they all have their passions. One says this, one says that. They're always out there.
Right.
I went to that party, and I was like, up in Washington.
Yes.
And I was walking by the Supreme Court because my man lives like real close.
Yes.
And I'm walking past it, and I'm going, maybe this will be the first time I go by because it's dusk, it's getting late. Maybe they've gone home.
And what did you find?
I found 12. Yeah, there's still 12 people out there in the freezing cold. So That's
And
fun.
Those days are long gone for me.
So, Walt Disney.
It's a pissing match. That's all I have to say.
Well, I mean,
They're
I don't think we
their
discussed. I
former
don't.
CEO is back, trying to put things back on track for Disney.
Well, you have to fire the last guy. He's the one who got you in trouble. Okay, listen. There's a time and a place.
Right.
You don't get involved in certain legislation. You don't say anything. If your employees are mad at you for not saying anything, listen, they're saying enough for you. Let them say it. Okay?
I really didn't
For
see
me,
the place for
for-
Disney to say a word.
But
It's silly.
let's talk about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
We repealed,
Reedy Creek.
okay? Reedy Creek, right? We repeal it.
Mhm.
Now we're going to evaluate it.
Right.
Now everybody's kind of going, ha ha, it's being put right back into place. No, it's not. So the thing that was removed with Reedy Creek,
Right.
the way it was written, they could have put a nuclear power plant in Reedy Creek. That's how, they had the authority to go way too far. Now they'll be limited.
Is this similar to other special taxing districts, like Reedy Creek?
Well, I mean, that was the most, I would say liberal. It's the most liberal. Reedy Creek was so liberal,
Right.
gave them so much authority.
Right.
And then everybody's like, oh, what Orange County is going to, and Osceola County going to have to take on all this extra. No, they were never going to have to take on the extra.
Mm-hmm.
They were always going to get Reedy Creek back. They just were going to get it back better written with some restrictions. So I think it brings it back into line. So yes, you could say that they lost, the governor lost, but you'd be wrong.
In either camp.
No, listen, I
I think DeSantis pick fights just to pick fights. This whole investigation, grand jury.
Listen, you know why?
The investigation of the grand jury in regards to the pharmaceuticals and their vaccines. Really, how's that help me as a Floridian? It doesn't.
okay. Well, I mean, if you want to go there, that's fine.
Come on.
No, I'm not.
I mean, really.
I'm going to tell you. You know what pissed him off?
What?
Listen, what pisses off the governor, and what pissed off the Republicans was the fact that the legislation that we're talking about was the parental. God, I just forgot
No.
The legislation was renamed by Carlos Guillermo Smith and all the liberal media and everything to "Don't Say Gay."
Okay, right.
And there was nothing in there
Okay.
that said "Don't say gay."
Right.
It said it needs to be age appropriate before we start talking about it, and parents should have the first go at explaining these things to their children.
Sense to me, but...
So, just because it restricts some, activist teacher from, I showed you that picture. I showed you that picture this morning. I mean,
right.
Okay,
but what does that have to do with the vaccine?
No, I'm not. We're talking about
what
what pissed him off to go after Disney.
He's got soft skin.
Listen,
you're a military man. He's got some soft skin. I mean,
well, wait, hold on.
Come on, a law. Just some common sense. People do your jobs. If you're a superintendent of a school or a principal and some garbage is being taught by a particular teacher, address it. But a law, and then it gets twisted, turned, whatever. Don't say. I mean, common sense.
Okay. Now you can get me. Now you can get me where I come in the middle a little bit,
Sure.
Because let's just talk about the library for a moment, because we have the Moms for Liberty.
Yes, Alicia Vermont.
Yeah. So I respect you guys, and I really have a lot. You're doing a lot to try to help our young people.
The Moms for Liberty.
But let me tell you something. If you want to burn books, if you want to ban books from a library, then I'm not with you any longer. Now, if you want to move them to a category where young people can't get to them, that's okay. But the moment you tell me a book cannot be in a library,
that's a problem.
Then I have a problem.
Right.
Because I will honestly tell you, we're not going there. I'm not going to say the word that I want to say right now.
Sure.
But if you watch a little bit of I was going to say. Yeah. I'm not going to say it. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just watch the host. Just watch that series, man. You see the books being burned. You see that. You got to learn from your history. Just like I tell these other people, taking statues down and moving them, to me, it makes no sense, because all you're moving is the history to a place where people aren't going to see it.
Right. And
then I was reading the other day, there's a monument that was being moved that's in the middle of a roundabout.
Correct.
And I'm thinking, not really a problem. I've gone down this road. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue this because they're already going to do it. And I went and read the article. The man is buried underneath it. Now I'm not. Whoa, dude! Like, now I have a problem. Mm-hmm. If that's his tombstone now, I mean, you don't get to take that shit down. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to. The court just said they could do it, and I'm like, whoa, that's like telling you could go to some black, some black burial area, or some Indian burial area, or some Jewish burial area, or any burial area, and say, you know what? Doesn't matter. Let's dig it up.
Or pave over it, like
okay. Let's just take all the tombstones out of there. You don't have to dig them up. Just take all the tombstones out. We don't need to know who they are.
Pave over it.
I mean, for me, it's.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You can't make this shit up. I mean,
even though he was a Confederate or whatever, his remains are in the tomb that was underneath the statue. I can understand removing the statue itself, but not removing the remains, and just have a plaque and say, hey, Colonel blah 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 lies here in this tomb. He was a Confederate.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Whatever.
Look, if you want to take and redo it a little bit, mm-hmm. like take the statue portion off and just have the rock itself.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, I have no problem with that.
If desecrate his tomb.
But you're literally saying this is you built it on top of him. Mm-hmm. It was there for a reason. Right. So I think I'll get bitched at for that one, but no. I'm supposed to be all, hey, don't take down those statues. No, I am kind of, because
some statues there are statues that do need to come down. There are military bases that need to have their name changed.
No.
Sure.
No. Why not? Isn't it bad enough they changed the MOSs, the military occupational specialties in the United States Army? I went in as a 31 Victor, which was communication.
Help the audience.
Oh, hold on. I went in as a 31 Victor. Okay, that was the designation for a tactical communications operator mechanic. Mm-hmm. Then I changed my military occupational specialty, MOS. I changed my MOS to be a military police officer.
Okay.
So when I changed my MOS, I became a 95 Bravo. Okay. There's only a few 95 series. You got CID, you got the jail, you got the MPs. Don't have a lot. So I'm talking to a friend who just got out of the military, mm-hmm. He was also MP. And I didn't know it at first. And I say, so what was your MOS? That's just a common little question.
Sure.
And the man says, I'm a 31 Bravo. I'm like, oh, you're in Como. He's like, no, I'm an MP. I went, holy crap, when did that change? They did a whole revamp. You can't be changing basis names just because they have. These are people that all went to West Point at the same time.
I understand. Sure.
Just think they all defended our country before they decided to do this.
Before they
And
decided to
the
be
Democrat
traitors
president,
to our country.
you're not going to get me. Listen, you're not going to get me to disagree with you there.
Okay.
What you're going to get is Johnson, who just happened to be a Democrat and happened to basically give them the pardon to allow them to
Move on
continue.
with their lives.
Once you pardon them, those statutes are legal. These are not criminals anymore. They're not traitors anymore. Now, I think they
On
are.
the flip side of that,
So I think they are.
so you're making a good argument for reparations.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying if there's a pardon,
Yes,
going with your
I support-
lives, it's a good starting
David,
point for a conversation. for
David,
reparations.
absolutely. We'll talk about that next time. I do believe in reparations. Anybody out there who was a slave, anybody out there that is still a slave, you need to be freed and you need to be paid. Okay? So that's it.
Mhm.
You don't get to, I don't get to benefit from my parents. You know, I don't get to benefit from anybody else. Come on. I mean, please, we already printing enough money. Come on, I reparations to everybody then. I mean, everybody should get reparations. I mean, we should be paid by the government to wake up in the morning.
Wait a second. So, are you advocating for a basic income, a universal income?
What? I'm telling you guys, you have gone like, whew. Okay, but no, you're right. I mean, I say, come on, people. A lot of people say, well, I'm from the North. I didn't own slaves. And I go, you're from the North. You sold slaves. I mean, come on, guys. We can say whatever we want. When we start looking at our history,
Yeah.
we start to see that, yes, there was inappropriate things that happened. This was,
Yeah.
we were the last to get rid of it. England, the first to abandon it. But slavery, you know, are we going to start paying the Jews? Egypt, are you ready to pay the Jews for having them enslaved? It's in the Bible, right? We know it happened.
Yeah, but Egypt's not a.
I'm just saying, Egypt should pay the
not a
Jews, and then
state, so-
you know, and then
or-
and then Germany should pay.
territory of
Then
America.
Germany should pay the Jews, and you know,
Germany has done some things.
yeah. But I'm saying, yes, they should have done something. They should have done something at that moment. If it didn't happen, there's no do-overs. There's no do-overs in baseball.
I think we've done plenty here in America to try to level the playing field. It's what we make of those opportunities.
Well, don't
whether
say,
you're black, white, or whatever.
listen. And that was where, General Colin Powell impressed me,
Mhm.
because he was against removing affirmative action,
Mhm.
because he used affirmative action.
Correct.
And I understand affirmative action.
Mhm.
But where does affirmative action end up? So he supports it, but he also, I believe he also warned people that if you continue, you will someday not be the minority. You will someday we will not be the minority.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we become the majority. What do we do then? Because you're not going to want to give these benefits in reverse.
Mhm.
So, and now we see, unfortunately, being used and abused the other way.
Mhm.
So Harvard, if you're Asian descent, you're smarter than most people. So guess what? We're going to limit the amount of smart people to getting into Harvard so we have enough room for other people. And I'm not saying what, but dumber people.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say dumber people. Like, I'm not saying,
it would be nice to have a more a well-rounded student body.
I understand they're
And,
scared they're scared that everybody from Japan and China or anywhere going to come to the Harvard.
Let the universities decide who they want to, have in their student bodies, and if Harvard wants to have all, this demographic.
Well, I know I'd like to be.
Versus a more versatile
I know a lot of
demographic.
people that would like to be in those student bodies.
Jesus.
Dun, 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 dun. I'm sorry. Okay, that was a bad joke, but it's good. It's fun.
What's in that coffee mug?
Nothing now. I mean, come on. I've been here so long. I've drank it all.
There we go.
So, well, we should wrap up soon. But it's. I love a conversation with David because, like, he understands when I'm joking. Maybe you don't. But yeah, I get a little put off when we start to get into these subjects because there's a right and wrong on both sides. We need to just kind of look at it. Like, when do we remove, and I'm not saying do it, I'm saying, when do you remove or change affirmative action?
Mhm.
When it ultimately does, like, what if it benefits white people all of a sudden?
Mhm.
Are we going to change it then, or are we going to change it before it happens? Are we going to change it?
As I stated earlier, the education I received from John himself in regards to gun safety regulation, it was an eye opener. It started to make sense to me. So that's why I can agree to where things are as far as regulation. Again, personally, I think let it be a free for all. That's just my simplistic way of looking at things. However, with like affirmative action, I think after a while you look at how things have improved for that demographic who has who benefited from affirmative action, for instance, and say, okay, maybe we can scale back, or maybe leave it up to the different organizations and institutions to determine for themselves. And if things revert back to where they were in the past, shameful America, shameful on America. The case can be said for the voter rights laws that were passed in the 60s. Okay, these things were in place. Now that the courts have pulled those back, okay, this is the result.
Yeah.
Is it for the best of democracy? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we're going to get in that conversation.
Sure.
But we're going to also talk, because we're going to get into a lot of stuff with the Supreme Court, because there's stuff that on both sides there too. Like, what happens? We talk about Roe v. Wade, right?
Mhm.
And I'm going to just briefly touch this because the courts, what the media says the courts did, is not actually what they did. They removed a landmark decision, correct?
Right.
But basically, they said the federal government has no right to regulate this.
Right.
The 10th Amendment gives it to the state.
Right.
That's all they said. So they didn't eliminate, they didn't make it illegal. Well, they kind of did in some states that automatically had laws that
Trigger laws.
trigger laws. But even those places with trigger laws, there are voters that are
Who push back.
Who push
like in
back.
Kansas.
And they listen. You live in the state. You know who your neighbor is. You basically know what the majority thinks. Move.
Vote.
Move.
Yeah.
Vote.
Vote.
Vote. Move. 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 Listen. I'm not going to California. That would be too much. That'd be too much of a change for me. Like, I at least want you to hear my voice once in a while. but not to have anything, like nothing.
We'll welcome you in Illinois.
I'll have to go to a one part of California,
San
wine
Diego.
country where I can't afford it.
Yeah.
I have to go to one of these places where I can't afford to live because, you know, these are the people that don't live in the city anymore because they can fly in. Enough of that. But thank you, David.
Yes.
I don't think we solved anything today, but I think what we've done is we've said,
necessarily have to solve anything.
you know, we've said, listen, push back on your party.
Yes.
Don't just take everything because it has an R or a D. Look, we can back these things around. All my friends with constitutional carry, I really don't care.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a subject that keeps me up at night. So when I criticize it or I look at different ways to criticize it, it's just simply to let people know there are people thinking differently. So if it's in the Constitution, it's up to the federal government to make sure it's protected.
Correct.
If it's not in there, then it goes to the states.
States.
And then don't forget the commerce laws. So guess what? We don't have borders to go into Georgia. We don't have borders to go into, hey, let's do that. Let's do that. We're going to get so serious now. Now that we have no Roe v. Wade, let's make sure that every street that goes into another state, we can employ more people instead of IRS agents. We can put border security on every one of our borders. No, we have borders, right? So then we can all take care of our own borders, and you can't bring that truck in here because it has, you know, Coca-Cola on it. We only accept Pepsi in Georgia.
What the secession movement is all about?
Listen, I'm just saying, you guys, it's like, wait a minute, the 14th Amendment doesn't exist anymore? It's the Supreme Court just kind of pointed it out. It's like, yeah, you kind of pointed out. You can't treat, I'm allowed to go from Maine to Florida, from Florida to California, anywhere in the United States because we have one nation.
Yeah.
But when I'm in that state, I obey those state laws.
Yeah.
And those state laws are anything that's not in the Constitution. That's it. You can't make this shit up.
Yeah, let's plug our shit. You know, look for us on the internet. I'm on Twitter at Apex Politico. We're all over the internet. Jay in Washington, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff.
Yep.
Do we have some outgoing music here?
Oh, we're going to in a second.
All right.
But we're going to first remind people who we are.